So the question in today's video is, should you date someone who has already been divorced twice? Is that a huge red flag? Well, I can tell you I have been divorced twice, so I hope it's not a huge red flag. So far, I've had plenty of people willing to date me knowing that information. So in this video, we're going to kind of go through the pros and the cons and talk about some key questions that you should ask someone you are either dating or considering dating to let you know whether or not it's going to work for you, whether or not it's going to be a good fit. Because there are some definite pluses to dating somebody who has already been divorced twice, but there's some huge red flags to look out for also. We're going to cover all of that and more in this video right now. Hi everyone, my name is Jeff Campbell from DivorcedParentsClub.com, and I'm on a mission to help other divorced people just like me navigate these troubled waters that we find ourselves in, whether that's parenting after divorce, co-parenting with a toxic ex, learning how to date again after a painful divorce, or helping your kids navigate challenges that come with divorce. We cover it all on this channel. If you have an idea for a future video you'd like to see, leave me that in a comment down below. But for now, let's get into today's video. So first of all, be aware that there are currently 42 million people out there who have been married more than once. So what does that tell us? It tells us that, unfortunately, as we've all heard, divorce is fairly common. Upwards of 50% of first marriages end in divorce. And then those percentages keep getting worse, unfortunately, the further into marriages people go. But it's very common for someone to have already been divorced once and be on their second marriage, or maybe divorced twice and already thinking about a third marriage. Very common, lots of people in that boat. So in and of itself, being married and divorced twice is not necessarily a red flag. But let's look at the pros of dating someone who's already been married and divorced twice. For starters, they know what they want. They've already been through the ringer twice, and they've kind of got life figured out a little bit. They know what they want, what they don't want. They know what they're looking for in a significant other. They better understand themselves, and they've kind of learned all this through the school of hard knocks, but they have a much clearer understanding, or at least they should, of what they want moving forward and what they want in a significant other. And that's good for you versus someone who's younger, less experienced in relationships, and hasn't quite figured all that out yet. The next one is kind of obvious, and the fact that they clearly aren't afraid of commitment. Some people are afraid of commitment, and they freeze up in the face of, somebody asking them to marry them. These people clearly don't have that issue. They may have other issues, and we're going to cover some of those in this video, but they don't have that issue. So if you are looking for a long-term committed relationship, maybe even marriage, the good news is this person is not going to be afraid of that. The next pro of dating someone who has been divorced twice is if they are a good parent. If they have kids, and the chances are pretty good after 2 marriages that they probably do. So if they have kids and they are a good parent, that is a huge pro. Why is that? Because they know how to put somebody else's needs ahead of their own. They know how to be selfless. They know how to be caring, empathetic. They know how to nurture and love. And all of those things can translate into how they treat you. The next is they've hopefully worked through their issues. After all, it takes 2 people to make a marriage, it takes 2 people to break a marriage. I don't care what the circumstances are, and yes, there are times where maybe one person does more damage than the other, but in general, it takes 2 people to destroy a marriage, and that creates some issues and some healing that has to happen, and hopefully, having already gone through this twice, they have worked through those issues and taken some real introspective looks at themselves and their own issues and what makes them tick. Maybe they've gone to therapy. All of those things, if they've done the work on healing from this, all of that is a huge pro in terms of helping them be healthier and better balanced, better emotionally regulated and well-adjusted, and that can all translate into a successful relationship, if that's what you want, with you. The other pro, as I see it, and this is assuming that you don't want kids, the other pro is that they have likely already had kids and don't want more. I have 3 kids, been divorced twice. Luckily, my 3 are with one woman, my second wife, but I don't want any more kids. And so I'm only dating women who also have kids who don't want more. I would not date someone who is looking to have more kids. For one, I've been fixed and don't plan on getting that undone. And I'm also 57. I don't have Mick Jagger's salary, so I don't need the number of kids that he has. So I'm not looking for more kids. So if you don't want more kids, then dating someone who's already been divorced twice is definitely going to work in your favor in terms of matching up in that particular area. Now, let's look at the cons of dating someone who has been married and divorced twice. So one of the cons is, and I know I mentioned earlier that they're not afraid of commitment, but one of the cons is they may be more gun shy about getting married a third time. After all, only about 5% of the population tend to marry beyond twice. And the divorce rates of third marriages is upwards of 74%. I know as a guy who has been divorced twice now, I'm not really looking for that. I don't want to ever say never, because it obviously would depend on the person and the circumstances. But right now, I don't want to get married a third time for a variety of reasons. And I'm not afraid of commitment. I'm not afraid of entering a long-term committed relationship, but I'm not really looking for marriage. And it would have to be a woman who is just amazing on many levels to convince me otherwise, at least the way I feel right now. Everything is pretty new in my situation. My ex left me a little over a year ago, and my divorce is only finalized about 2 months ago. But right now, my mindset is I don't want to get married a third time. The third time is not the charm. The other big con that comes with the territory of dating someone who's been divorced twice is they may have less disposable income. Unfortunately for me, this one does ring true for me. I have to pay my ex-wife, my second ex-wife, I have to pay her a fairly large sum of money every month. It's actually an amount of money that's larger than the last paycheck I used to get before I went into full-time blogging and YouTubing. So it's a sizable amount of money. I'm not going to disclose that here, but it's a lot of money. And I have to pay that every month for 5 years. And it's just going to take me some time to kind of rebuild the income from the various projects I have going on to replace that. I haven't done that yet, which means right now I don't have a lot of disposable income compared to what I had before we split up. So that's just the reality of the situation for the women who I am dating right now. I don't have as much money as I did before the split. And they just have to be okay with that. It does mean some limitations in terms of whether or not I go on trips or vacations with these women down the line eventually, once I'm in a committed relationship, that kind of thing. It's just a factor, and it affects the people that I'm dating, and it affects me as well, and the choices that I make. The next one that can come up sometimes, luckily I don't feel like this is an issue for me, but someone who has been divorced twice may have self-esteem issues as a result of that. They may feel like a failure. They may not understand exactly what went wrong and why this keeps happening to me and that kind of thing. And if they haven't done the work to heal from that, I go to therapy now every other week, but I used to go every week. And if they haven't done some work to heal themselves and to really understand some of the root issues that may have led to that divorce, then that may have taken its toll on their self-esteem, and they may still be struggling with that. And that's going to trickle over into how they affect you and what it's like for you to date them. So just be aware of that. Look for those signs too of low self-esteem, maybe codependency, some other issues that can result from that kind of feeling of failure that comes with getting divorced twice. The next con I want to bring up is if it's been too short a period of time since their split. In my case, I wanted to wait both a year before I started to date from when my ex asked for a divorce, and I also wanted to wait until the judge had signed our divorce decree so that I wasn't technically committing adultery. It's not really adultery since we separated long before the divorce was done, but I just wanted that peace of mind that I wasn't doing anything wrong. My ex did actually start seeing a guy before the divorce was done. It didn't bother me really, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted to wait till the divorce decree was totally done before I started dating, and I wanted to wait about a year. I started dating a little bit shy of the 1 year mark from the split, But it is a red flag if someone starts dating too quickly. Why is that? Well, it means that you could very easily just be a rebound or a fling and not someone that they are seriously going to be in a long-term committed relationship with. Now, if you're just looking for a hookup or a fling, I guess that's fine. But if you're looking for a long-term committed relationship, you ideally want someone who has been separated from their spouse for a long period of time. One of the women that I'm dating isn't actually divorced, but she has been separated from her spouse for years. And just for more or less for financial reasons, they haven't actually done the divorce yet. So I don't see that as much of a red flag as I do as if, say, I was dating somebody who had split up from their ex like a couple months ago. And it's just not enough time to process everything, to heal the pain, to understand the root of what happened to the marriage and what that person's contributions were to the demise of the marriage. Again, I don't care if the other person cheated, and that's devastating, that's totally wrong, but there's no way that the other person, the one who didn't cheat, there's no way that they didn't do anything to damage the marriage also. It may be more the other person's fault than their fault, but it takes two people to make a marriage and two people to break a marriage. And if they haven't had enough time since the breakup, they probably haven't come to terms with that. They probably haven't healed from that. And that makes it more likely that they're going to carry those mistakes into their next relationship. And you don't want to be that person. So now let's talk about some key questions that you need to ask if you are dating or considering dating someone who has been married and divorced twice. First of all, why did they get divorced? At least the second time. In my case, I was divorced the first time in 1994, a long time ago, and then I had 15 years off for good behavior before I got married the second time. But in the case of the second marriage, I now know, I have a good understanding now of why we got divorced. I didn't at the time when she asked for the divorce. It came totally out of the blue, and she said she'd been feeling this way for 2 years, and it came as a total shock to me and the kids, unfortunately, and I couldn't wrap my head around it. I've since kind of come to terms with the fact that I recognize that I got complacent in the marriage. I stopped courting and dating her. I stopped making her feel special. Both of us were guilty of putting the kids' needs above our needs as a couple, and you naturally are going to do some of that as a parent, but I feel like we went too far in that direction and forgot who we were as a couple. And of course, you know, she could have mentioned that along the way. I could have had the wherewithal to think about it along the way, and then we could have taken steps to fix that. She didn't want to do that. She just kind of waited until she was fed up, and then she was done and didn't even want to consider fixing it. And I think that was wrong. But I at least have an understanding of what I did to damage the marriage. So it's important that if you're dating someone who's been married and divorced twice, that they understand their role in what happened and what they did wrong. The next thing is, you've got that understanding, but what have you done, what have they done to learn from their mistakes? In my case, I began to focus on myself exclusively after my ex asked for a divorce. I started exercising more, got back in touch with hanging out with my friends more, got back to the hobbies that brought me joy. I started meditating every day, and I just focused on being the best version of me that I could be. At the time, I thought, well, maybe that would work to attract my ex back. It did not, but I do think it made me happier and healthier for me, which is important, but it also made me that much more attractive to other people when I was eventually ready to start attracting them. And then I was also doing therapy to help me better understand the issues that I was bringing to the marriage and what the root of those things were. And ultimately, in my case, the root was a fear of abandonment from my own childhood. You know, many people in my life who were important left me at an early age, and I found myself becoming a people pleaser in an attempt to hold on to people, and it made me a little bit clingy and needy sometimes. I tended to have an anxious attachment style, if you're familiar with attachment styles. I'm going to put a video up in the corner at the end that goes deeper into attachment styles. But I found myself in that situation because of my own childhood, and that was how it affected my relationships, and as a result, it tended to push people away, or I tended to end the relationship early, because at least then I was in control of the end as opposed to waiting to be dumped. And somehow that gave me a sense of security. But I've tried to work through all of that, and I find myself in a much healthier place now because of the work that I've done. So you want to know that they have done some sort of work on themselves to get better and to heal from their issues. And then the next question to ask is, have they had enough time to heal? Again, I mentioned earlier that it's kind of a con or a red flag if someone hasn't had a lot of time since their split. If they've only been split up a couple months, you don't want to be dating that person. You're going to end up being a rebound or a fling, and 2 months down the road, they're going to move on to somebody else once they've kind of done some more of that healing and processing. So have they had enough time to heal? And how much time that is really depends on a few factors. What kind of work are they doing on themselves, and how long were they in a relationship for? Were their kids involved? Those kinds of things affect how long it's going to take to heal. But I would say generally bare minimum of 6 months from the time the split happened, if not a year or longer. 2 years would even be more ideal. And then the last question to ask is, do they take ownership of the things that they did in their marriage that caused it to end, or do they just blame their ex? That's a huge question to ask, something to really dive in deep on. If all they do is bash their ex and you hear nothing from them about their own role in the demise of the relationship, that's a huge red flag, because it says that for one, that they're just in denial. Denial, as they say, is not just a river in Egypt, and they haven't really taken ownership of their actions. And if they don't take ownership of their actions in this situation, they're not going to take ownership of their actions with you. And you don't want to be dating someone who isn't accountable, who blames everybody else and doesn't take any ownership of their own actions. You don't want to be dating someone like that. Trust me, it's a nightmare. Anyway, I hope this video helps you. If it did, please give me a thumbs up, then smash that subscribe button and the bell notification button too. But for now, I'll see you in the next video.